my name's Basye. I am author of Heck, Where the Bad Kids Go, and Rapesha, The Second Circle of Heck. And those are my first two books. The next book in the Heck series is called Blimpo, The Third Circle of Heck, and that'll be out in May of 2010, which sounds like the future, and I guess it is the future. And that book will be dealing with the impulse-controlled children who perhaps have a little, maybe second helpings of everything, sometimes third helpings. And in that book, Milton will be reunited with Virgil, who he met in the first book. And I think that's all I'm going to say about the third book. But of course, being about Blimpo, it is probably the biggest book in the series so far. My writing process, usually I have a lot of fun at the concepting stage and at the editing stage, but then there's that terrifying place in between where you have to fabricate something from thin air. But my process usually is I'll jot down a whole bunch of ideas just because I find that even if I'm thinking about something else, there's a part of me that's always sort of writing or always in the heck zone or whatever my current project is. So I'll jot down a bunch of ideas, and then when it's time to come up with a synopsis for a book, I'll usually that happens pretty quickly. I'll just kind of go through and just come up with some ridiculous plot line and give that to my editor, and she'll have some feedback, and then I undergo the torturous task of actually committing that to word processing. And that process usually takes a few months because I'm on a yearly series, so the timeline is pretty tight. And then I'll usually go through a few rounds of edits for that to really hone it and to really figure out what I'm writing about. My process to actually realizing my longtime dream of becoming a published author began with the Willamette Writers Conference. I went there to the Willamette Writers Conference, I believe in 2005, and I thought, okay, I'll do a pitch session because I've never done that before, and I had a couple of stories rattling around that I had sent off blindly into, through the mail, and of course I get that politely written yet very cold rejection slip. So I thought, okay, I'm going to actually get face-to-face with a live editor, pitch my idea, they'll turn me down or laugh in my face, and then I'll learn from that experience to craft a better introduction letter to send out. So those were my low expectations going into the conference. And so what I did is, being in advertising, I wrote out what my pitch was going to be, almost like a movie trailer, like imagine a world where, that kind of thing, except not as cheesy and not as deep. And so what I did is I recorded that and then put it on my iPod because I ride my bike everywhere, and I listened to it again and again and again because I get really nervous. I mean, I'm nervous now, right, talking. So I get really nervous pitching myself. So I thought, okay, I'll just chisel this in my brain so when I'm actually talking to an editor, it'll just fly out and I could be in the moment. And so anyway, so that's what happened. I met Diane Landolph, who at that time was an associate editor at Random House Children's Books, and I had a great time with her, and she seemed to really like my pitch, gave me her information. So I thought, okay, that was nice. I'm sure she's, says that to most anybody. That's great. So I didn't think much about it after that, and then about a month later, she emailed me and went, Dale, I'm wondering where your book is that you talked about. I was really, really interested in it, and please send it to me. So I'm like, oh, poop, for lack of a better word. I better get on that. So I had originally written it actually as a screenplay, and I was in the process of converting it into a book. So I just hurried along, sent that to her, and at that point, the book was probably about half as long as it is now, and it didn't really have an ending. It was kind of a cliffhanger, since I had originally envisioned it like a show, a TV show or something. So she said, well, I really like what you've done, but I can't sign you as it is now, but if you're willing to do these things, and she detailed what she wanted me to do on spec, then she said, I'm pretty confident that we can sign you. So that's what I did, and that's what happened. So I was signed to a 2-book deal, which I've since completed. And then when it came time for more books in the series, because I envisioned Heck as a 9-part series to be the 9 Circles of Heck, I thought, well, I really lucked out, but I do not know contracts whatsoever. So I think this time around, for the next round of negotiations, I should really get an agent. and I had no idea where to go, how to do that. So what I did is I looked around online. I joined some message boards about authors and talking about their agent's experience, and I just kind of found maybe about a half a dozen of people who I knew dealt with middle grade fiction. So I contacted them, and I had a couple of really great conversations with a couple, and finally chose Michael Beret at Distel and Godrich agency in New York, and he's really awesome. And he basically dealt with my contract for the third and fourth books that I'm contracted to do, and he even got me the film rights for the first two books that I had signed away the first time. So he's really cool. And I think an agent, I mean, it was an interesting experience in that I already had the deal, so I didn't need an agent to help solicit stuff for me. So it was basically just for making sure that I was getting all I needed out of the contract, and also for moral support. If I read a bad review or something, I will email him and he'll tell me what I need to hear to make me feel better. So he's great about that. I have a website for the Heck books. It's called wherethebadkidsgo.com. And there is a whole bunch of interactive games, quiz to see what circle of Heck you would go to in the unfortunate event of you being sent to Heck. There's downloadable screensavers and desktop themes. And as a little hint, if for any of you there who are doing literary websites, and even if you're working with a publisher, it's always best to handle that stuff yourself, because my experience as publisher doesn't have a lot of budget to do that, so it is up to you. And what I did, since I have some experience with advertising, is I was able to solicit the help of a small agency that was really hungry for doing a really cool portfolio site for no cost. So that's how I'm able to get a really cool site for next to nothing. And on that site is also a blog that I really should update more frequently than I do. But it's about the latest happenings in Heck, latest readings, some just vague musings, and that is also on the site, linkable on the site. And I can also be contacted at heck@wherethebadkidsgo.com. I'd love to hear from fellow writers and commiserate, so just to assure you that you are not alone. Writing happens to the best of us, and it's okay. It's nothing to be ashamed of. You could reach out to a fellow writer, and we can get through this together.